Have you ever felt conflicted in terms of which career path and passion to pursue? This is the Leaders of Transformation podcast. And on this show, we interview difference makers and world changers who are disrupting for good. I'm your host, Nicole Jansen, and our guest today is Rich Goldstein. Rich is a registered patent attorney, and he works with entrepreneurs to help them protect their ideas, their products, their brands with patents and trademarks. And he's been doing that over the last 28 years. He's actually obtained over 2,000 patents for his clients. He is also trained as a coach and a course leader and was previously serving as the CEO of an organization which conducted weekend retreats, transformational retreats. And, I thought about as we were preparing for this conversation that there are so many people that are, over the last few years that are leaving their corporate jobs to become a coach and saying, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to help people and I got to be a coach. I want to be a coach to do that. And so they kind of think that they need to leave their corporate job in order to make that possible. And what's interesting about Rich's story is that Rich has actually done the opposite, where he's gone from being he was attorney before, became a coach, and is now back in the business of being a patent attorney. And so we're going to talk today about how he has blended his career passions and how you can do the same thing. So I'm really excited to have him here. Rich, welcome to Leaders Transformation.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Great to be here.
My pleasure. And, I do want to do a shout out to Heather Pierce Campbell. She is the one who introduced us. And Heather, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And Heather's actually been on this show before. She is also a very talented attorney. And she was a guest on the show in episode 151. And that is like 300 episodes ago. So that's a long time ago.
Wow.
And that's really awesome. And so if anyone's listening and wants to know how to legally protect your online business, she is an excellent resource for that. She also hosts the Guts, Grit, and Great Business podcast. And I've been a guest on that show, and I believe Rich has as well. And
Well,
so
yeah.
highly recommend, check that out.
Yeah. And
All
I
right.
highly recommend Heather too. She really is a fantastic attorney. And she is just really the go-to person if you want to protect your online IP.
Yes. Yes. I've utilized her for contracts. She has an area even on her website for templates. And I've sent so many people there to utilize those templates for some of their agreements and contracts that they need with their online business. So excellent. So Rich, coming back to you. Now, why did you become a patent attorney?
Okay. Well, pretty much the way it went was I was studying electrical engineering in college. And at the same time, I started a business. And I became very interested in business. And I also realized that the reality of being an engineer would be working on the same project day in and day out for years at a time, like some really tiny, minuscule piece of some bigger thing. And that just did not fit my personality. And so I thought about changing my major to business. But I learned about the field of patent law, where you can be an engineer or you need to be an engineer and also an attorney. And then you get to work on lots of different projects and work on people's innovations. So it sounded like a great career path. I finished electrical engineering. I went to law school. And when I came out of law school, I started my own practice. And so that's what I set about to do, was be a patent attorney. And it was great in many regards, is that I got to work on different projects all the time.
So then later on, somewhere along the way, you became a transformational coach. And kind of where did that happen? Because usually and I've worked with a lot of attorneys myself, and they're like head down, focused, all out in their career. And you kind of took a little bit of a turn in that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think like most people that find themselves in some type of transformation, has had a bit of an ontological crisis, and things just weren't working the way that I wanted them to. And a friend introduced me to his coach in San Francisco. This is back in 2000 and 2003. And so really, like, life coaching wasn't much of a thing. You didn't really hear much about it. And it was kind of an oddity. And he says, like, well, this guy that I'm working with is, I know it sounds very California, very guru-ish, but he's my coach. It's been doing great things for me. I think it'll do great things for you. So I sat down with this person, Jerry, and after an hour, I decided to take on this coaching thing and have Jerry coach me. I had tremendous, I experienced tremendous growth through that, through doing some other programs. Also, Jerry had created a program in San Francisco that was really a deep transformational workshop that helped people to kind of get to see the assumptions they've made about themselves, other people in the world, through the course of a really intense, intimate, deep weekend workshop. And it was incredible beyond anything I had experienced to that point. And so I set about helping them to bring it out into the world. And I became the CEO of this organization. And I also went deeper in my own journey of becoming a coach, of learning how to facilitate. I worked with some pretty high level people training me. One of the original trainers from Est,
Yeah.
that trained me to facilitate. And so essentially I got to the point where I was really loving the difference that I was making with people through coaching, either through the program that I was kind of running from a business perspective, and the profound difference that was making in people's lives, or one-on-one with people, having conversations with people that were stuck, that got them unstuck and got them to move forward and take action. And at the same time, I became kind of disenchanted with my career, with the patent law career. Because on the one hand, I felt like when I was coaching people, I was making a difference. But when I was acting as a patent attorney, I felt at the time that I was more of the problem, that people were seeking to patent an invention because they felt, well, if only I could get this done, then I would finally make it. Then I could be happy. Or, I don't have it now. So if I can become it, or if I can create it, then maybe then I would make something of myself. So it was like, it just always felt to me, especially with my coaching lens on, like it was coming from some place of lack, or this isn't it. I'm not satisfied. And I'm like, am I really helping anybody? So what I wanted to do was to just leave this whole patent thing behind and become a coach. And a bunch of things happened. Uh, and I'll relate to you one of them first. So, back then I was getting interested in all kinds of different methodologies of coaching and of getting to your essence, or however you want to describe it, getting to authenticity. And one of them I was exploring was meditation, like Buddhist meditation. And so there was a Buddhist meditation group near me that met every Tuesday night, and we would do 20-minute sit, and then a walking meditation, and a 20-minute sit, and then maybe a Dharma talk where the teacher was kind of giving some lecture to the class while we meditated. But then one time we did this thing, which he called, I believe it was called interviews, where one at a time during the meditation, we got up and went into the room with him and asked a question, and he would continue meditating and give an answer. And so when it was my turn, I got up and I went into the other room. I sat down in front of him, with my hands out in that mudra position and eyes half closed. And I laid out the situation like I just described it, where, I love making a difference with people, but I feel that my patent attorney clients are all coming from a place of attachment. You know, Buddhism, they talk about attachment as being the root of all suffering. And so I was saying, the my clients all seem to be coming from a place of attachment, um, and and essentially I was contributing to their suffering. And so I want to change careers and do something where I could directly contribute to people and contribute to people's growth. And he sat there in silence a little while. And he said, well, the solution is be a bodhisattva patent attorney. And what he meant by that is, like, if you were essentially a Buddhist monk, or if you were a person who was enlightened, that happened to be a patent attorney, how would you be? What would you be doing? What would you be saying to people? So embody all of, so in other words, embody all of which I loved about being a coach, all of which I loved about being a person who, by example, helped to transform others. Do that as a patent attorney. And so what I set out to do was to, first of all, see in people the things that matter to them and find ways to help serve that through the work I was doing for them. Empower people where they felt like there was something they wanted to do, but there was something in the way. And they didn't feel quite capable of doing it. So in essence, I found myself very frequently coaching my clients. They were calling me about something very, technical or procedural related to their case. And we'd end up having a conversation where we'd go pretty deep. And often the entry point would be what it is that mattered to them, the thing that they wanted with regard to their project. But I've followed a rabbit hole down to as far as it goes. And yeah, I mean, we had some conversations, and there were tears involved at times, but much deeper conversation than they ever would have expected with their patent attorney, and much deeper conversations than I ever thought was possible in that role, and much more of a difference I was able to make than I ever thought possible from this, like, pigeonholed career that I labeled myself as patent attorney.
Yeah. Wow. I love the way you laid that out for us. And there's so much in that. I think about where you started and where you talked about your own perception of, this sounds very California. I remember because I actually started my business and coaching and training in 2005. And early on, it was supposed to be for workshops and just doing, these workshops and events that you're talking about. And so I had some people that would say to me, would you coach me, one-on-one? And I was like, no, I'm not a therapist. That was my answer, because I really didn't understand. And I think a lot of us didn't understand, and many still don't understand what coaching is really about and what it can do for you. And fast forward to what you were saying about now what you get to do with your clients. Many of those people may never have walked through the door of a retreat or an event, transformational event, but so you get to impact people now that wouldn't be inclined necessarily to have those conversations at that time. Maybe at some point they're searching, they just don't know where to find the answers, and they know something's off. But here they are in your office talking about patents and trademarks, and
Right.
here they get to have that conversation. So what an opportunity you
Yes.
did to reach people that you wouldn't be able to reach if you just said, I'm a coach and I work with people who are looking for a coach.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I never thought of that before. And it's really true. I mean, it's like, if you want to make a difference with people, um, I mean, it's one thing to say like, I'm a coach, and like, and of course the people that hire you are people that say like, yeah, I need a coach, but making a difference with people that weren't looking for a coach,
Yeah.
weren't really looking for coaching, and without even like coaching them in a way in which you're giving them unsolicited coaching, you're just having a conversation about what they want. You're getting into their world, and you're getting to understand what matters to them, and you're maybe having some conversations that dissolve a few of those beliefs that they have, that they haven't questioned. They've just been sitting there like, oh yeah, well, you have to do blank before you do X. Well, do you really?
Yeah.
Does anyone ever think about before? It's like just having gentle conversations with people. Uh, it's kind of like the opportunity for next level coaching. Like,
Yeah.
coaching that doesn't even look like coaching, that's a certain thing. And so if someone is out there saying, oh, like, my career in whatever, in finance or whatever it is, like, this isn't it. I want to be a coach where I'm really making a difference. Well, find a way to integrate the way in which you care about people and the way in which you want to contribute to people into what you're doing now, is you'll have an opportunity to impact people that weren't even looking to be impacted, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, you could have a huge impact.
Yes. I've had a lot of people over the years who said, I want you to help me grow my business. So coach me specifically on strategy and all of this, and
Mhm.
sales techniques or whatever it is. And it's like, okay. So first of all, in order for us to do that, we have to start here,
Right.
right? With who are you? Who are you being? Why are you doing this? And why do you even want that? And like you're saying, and what a great opportunity, like we were talking about, opportunity that people have no matter what they do. And so I love that. And I'm hoping that out of this conversation there's going to be some people that are going to be released into continuing doing what they're doing wherever they are. So be you wherever you are. I love that. Even that advice that you got.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for self-expression in
Yes.
anything that you do.
Yes. So what are some of the what would you see some of the obstacles that might be in the way, other than just what we were talking about in terms of people not even seeing the opportunity? But then what are some of the obstacles that maybe you faced even in those early stages where you're like, okay, how do I do that? Like how do I pivot and change the way that I'm used to doing, because I'm used to doing it a certain way and now I'm going to do it a different way.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I'd say for me, probably obstacles weren't that profound. Except that I found myself working with different clients. So it's kind of like, um, you know,
So
I
learning to say
kind of,
no.
what's that?
to, is it learning to say no to some clients, maybe to say yes to the ones that you want to work with? Or
Um, Kind of like
unpack that
like
a little bit.
learning to say no, but in a nicer way. Like to kind of like work with those people that shouldn't be doing anything, to really help them to see what would be necessary for them to start, and then they don't start, right? It's like, before you do this, you need to consider all of that, right? Like, so
Okay.
show them that, like, kind of expand their view of it to, specifically in my field, they're thinking like, oh, I just need to get a patent, and once I get a patent, like everybody's going to pay me for this and blah blah blah, and they have a certain path in mind. And I show them, well, there's a certain other things they need to think about. And then this isn't necessarily the right step. This isn't necessarily the first step you should be taking. You ought to think about all of these things. And it's not all about this, where you're putting all of your attention in this one direction. It's these other things. And maybe take a look at those things first. And then naturally they wouldn't start, because they probably wouldn't take a look at those things. But if they did, then they've shown themselves to be coachable, and they've kind of uh, taken a step to actually have them move towards success rather than down the wrong path. So I guess a little bit of that, of like, it's not, wasn't quite saying no, but it was like helping to get the people that should be moving forward to move forward, which is actually sales. Sales really is having conversations with people to find out where there's a match between what they want and what you can provide. And I did get very good at sales, like during this period, through a lot of the knowledge I had about people and what matters to people and how to help people to move from point A to point B. But a lot of good sales, though, too, is that selection process, is helping to bring people to a point where they see that they're not a match.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest shift that happened.
Yeah. Well, and I hear in that permission is permission to be you. And for some, they're going to resonate with that and they're going to want to take that journey, and others are not. And what made me think about even just saying no is I was talking to an attorney, interestingly enough, was it yesterday? And she loves mediation. She's in family law. She loves mediation. She doesn't enjoy litigation. And there's this pull towards litigation, right? And yet she knows what she wants. And so she's in that process. We were just talking about that, about saying yes to what the clients that she enjoys working with, and saying no and saying yes, and maybe is a different way to put it, is yes, and the best person to help you with that is going to be so-and-so, and it's not me, right? So that you can choose. And I think there's that, we need to give ourselves permission to do what we're called to do, not just do what the world expects of us.
Right.
And so often I think people are not true to themselves. And especially in this space of having to choose, it's that either or conversation. You talked about, scarcity and lack. It's this either or versus the yes and. Yes, I'm a solution provider, and the best solution for you is going to be this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, in the case of your friend, the mediator, I think part of then the challenge is to make mediation more attractive. People.
Yes.
Is to find new ways to make, if she wants to do mediation and she believes that mediation is more effective for everyone, more efficient for everyone than going to litigation, then finding new ways to communicate to people how great mediation could be is then part of our challenge.
Yes. Yeah. So for those that are out there, in terms of steps, and this is putting your coaching hat on a little bit as well, right? And you're from your experience. For those that are listening out there, that let's say could be somebody that's leading a company, or maybe they're working at a company and they're like, I feel like this is a dead end job. I just need to get out. And again, there's like this mass exodus happening right now, the great resignation happening right now. What would you tell them in terms of the steps that they would need to take in order to do what they're called to do? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, a lot of times we think we're passionate about a thing. Like we might say, I'm passionate about art, or I'm passionate about painting. Well, what is it that you're passionate about when it comes to painting? And that's usually something that people will have to stop. What's the experience that you're passionate about creating in other people from your paintings? Wow.
That's a great question.
Okay. Maybe I'm passionate about when someone looks at my painting, they forget themselves for a moment and wonder what their place in the world is. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing that they're passionate about, right? Then in your present career, could you do in your career to have people forget themselves for a moment and wonder what their place is in contributing to the world? Like, how do you bring the experience of the thing that you say you're most passionate about into your career? It's not about the doing. It's not about the art. It's about the experience you're passionate about creating. So if you're passionate about coaching, and it's because you love empowering people, you love giving people a pathway, see that there is a pathway in front of them that they can take where they might not have seen that before. And you're in insurance sales, right? Like, how do you take that and bring it into insurance sales? How do you empower people? How do you show someone that there's a pathway towards something that matters to them that they might not have seen before? So it's a matter of looking. So just in terms of steps, it's a matter of looking at what is the nature of the experience that you're passionate about creating in the world, and then look to see how you can bring that experience into what you're doing right now. Well, maybe even like a modification of what you're doing right now. Maybe even staying within the same industry, but moving to a different position within your company that is more about that. So, I mean, maybe it's like you move towards a position of, for example, being a trainer within your company because you're passionate about helping to empower people to take a certain path. Um, but but that's really how you do it, is you look for the opening to do what you're passionate about, like to create the experience that you're passionate about, and to dispel the notion that your passion is just a set thing, like painting or coaching or playing the drums. Whatever it is, there is some type of experience there that is what you're really passionate about.
I love that. And I think about even piggybacking on that is this opportunity that we have and that they have to be able to even practice that in the space of where they are before they go out and try to do this full time, if you will, as a coach, that they can do it there. And because how often do we see people leaving and then going back because they had a hard time doing that? But also, what you're saying about this experience is it's not about the thing. It's that's a vehicle. That's it. It's a vehicle to get you somewhere. So what you're talking about is the being. It's the be, do, have versus the have, do, be. It is who are you being, and you can be who you are,
Right.
where you are. It's like there was a gentleman who used to say, mentor of one of my mentors, used to say, you're doing what you're doing while you're doing it. And it's like you're being who you're being while you're being it. Like you're right there. You don't need to go somewhere else to be you. You can be you right now. And I know we haven't talked about patent law and some of the
And we
details
don't
of
need
patent
to.
law. What I think we've done here, though, in this conversation is, people that are listening, hopefully the entrepreneurs and business leaders that are listening, will get a sense of what it's like to work with you,
Mm-hmm.
because you're a different kind of patent law, patent lawyer. And the way that you're going to approach it is different. And so they get a sense of what it would be like to work with you. That being said, what if you were to give us a little tidbit as it relates to your expertise in that
Yes.
area? What would you want to share with them?
Well, probably the most important little takeaway whenever I speak about patent law, most people don't realize, is that you lose the rights to patent something by making it public. And in the U.S., worst case, you've made it, you make it public, you publish it on the internet, you put the product for sale. A year goes by, it's too late to ever patent it. It's just that a lot of times entrepreneurs will say, I have to conserve resources. I'm just getting started. If things work out, I'll come and patent it later. And then they launch the product. A couple of years go by. They come to me and say, I just have to patent this. I'm selling millions, and people are about to start copying it, and we need to do something. And when I ask them how long they've been selling it, and they tell me it's been a couple of years, unfortunately, I have to tell them it's too late. And they say, well, how would I have possibly known that? Like, well, unless they taught a course on patent law in high school, you probably wouldn't. But this is where this is the one piece of information that I try to tell as many entrepreneurs as possible. It's just that the time to explore whether you're going to patent something or not, and not everything should be patented, but the time to explore is before you make it public, before you launch it.
That is great advice. And I'm curious about trademarks. Is trademarks the same thing?
Trademarks is different. So trademarks is no actual time limit. And of course, trademarks are for branding, for the name of your company, a logo, the name of your product, things like that. And it doesn't work the same way, in that there is no actual time limit for when you need to trademark something. But if someone else files before you, then it becomes an uphill battle. So it pays to file as early as possible. But yeah, I mean, if let's say you inherited a mom and pop business that's been going on for 50 years, and your family never applied for a trademark, you might still be able to do it, as long as other people haven't done other things that would confuse whether that name just pertains to your company, and whether someone else hasn't filed their trademark before you. So there is no actual time limit, but it just pays to do it as early as practical.
And there's also jurisdictions for that in terms of trademarks, right? I mean, you have yeah.
Patents and trademarks are all jurisdictional. If a U.S. patent is effective within the U.S., Japanese patent is effective within Japan. Same thing with trademarks.
Yeah. Well, Rich, thank you so much. I appreciate this. I've enjoyed this. And it's not that just because we talked, I mean, patent law is fascinating, trademark law, understanding that protecting how to protect intellectual property, I think is so valuable and interesting conversation. And, and what we've shared today is just fascinating to see how you can, and I think this is so applicable to so many people right now, how you can blend those career passions and do what you love doing. And one of the takeaways that I got out of this was when you talked about the experience. What is the experience that you're desiring to create? And how can you do that where you are? So thank you so much for that. And yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think it's possible to create the career path that that you want to create. Like, you can create it all. You can create where you live in the world. You can create who you're working with on a day-to-day basis. It's not like the world gets to decide. You get to decide.
Yes, absolutely. And for our listeners, I would encourage you, go check out what Rich is doing. He's got some videos on patent law. If you want to understand how that works a little bit more, if you want to schedule a time with his team to determine whether or not it's a good fit in what you're looking to do, make sure that you do it before you go public with it. Talk to them, as he's just shared. GoldsteinPatentLaw.com. We'll also make sure that is in the show notes. Go check out what Rich is doing and follow him. And I mentioned earlier about Heather. Rich has been on her show. I'm sure they had a great conversation. And so, but we, make sure there's a link to that as well. Check out what Heather's doing. And so you can continue this journey. But thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Leaders of transformation, take action. Take action on something you learned today. Maybe it's for you. Maybe it's for someone else. Maybe your action is sharing this with a friend who has been struggling and wondering whether they should leave their job and go do something else or be a coach. And you can share this with them and help them to get on the right path where they can do what they love doing where they are without risking, their career, their income and all of that stuff. Maybe it's for you. Maybe it's you asking yourself and saying, even if you love what you do and you're not planning to go anywhere, maybe it's asking yourself the question, what's the experience that I want to create for others that I'm passionate about? And how can I do that better, more effectively in 2023 and beyond? And it's asking yourself that question, really sitting with that, meditating on that, and then taking action on that. So we encourage you to that. We'd love to hear your stories. You, of course, can go on leadersoftransformation.com, reach out to us through there. You can find us on social, follow us on social. And we hope this has been a blessing to you and a great start as part of our New Year's, kickoff. And we just appreciate you being here. We look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Leaders of Transformation. Have a great day.